Hey guys, and welcome to Heroic Showdown featuring the mighty Chad Thorgrim, also known as Grombrindle, up against Void, and it should be the old school grudge match between the forces of the Dawi and the Greenskin hordes, and my god is this a slogfest of a fight. Grombrindle and Void both been recently winning quite a lot of tournaments. Grombrindle winning one of my one build, and I believe it was the King of the Hill actually, the Corn King of the Hill, and Void winning, I think, his own version of a King of the Hill, plus a ton of Logic's recent tournaments. So it's certainly going to be a competitive game. This is one of those matchups which is heavily considered to be in the Greenskin favour, although there are a few tricks the Dawi can pull, such as air forces, and the Greenskin player certainly has to be ready for a multitude of Dawi vengeance. So what have the Dwarfs done? Well, we've got real cheap and cheerful, it seems. We have Ekron miners and miners dotted through the front line, supported by basic Dwarf warriors. This is allowing the Dwarfs to go relatively wide and bring a bunch of different damage output tools, coming in the form of these Thunderers in the secondary line, and in the third line we have some Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes, supported by Dwarf warriors with great weapons and the warriors of Dragonfire Pass. Right here on the back burners, we have a Dragonback Slayer unit, and their main job today is going to be to protect the Goblobber, the regiment of renowned Grudge Thrower, who brings a vengeance to the battlefield, and is kind of thematic, right? It chucks little rocks with goblins strapped to them, so it makes sense to bring it against the Greenskins, and shall give that -16 leadership. Leading the forces is Ungrim Ironfist, one of the most successful and unsuccessful slayers of all time. Lord Master Sotek has a really cool video about him out, actually, that I checked out quite some time ago. Double Trollhammer torpedoes should be able to do some pretty decent long-range damage to trolls and other such large creatures. For the forces of the Greenskins, we do have 4 units of skirmish cavalry, coming in the form of Goblin Wolf Rider archers, as well as the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. In fact, it looks like we have another couple of units, Morgrim's Mangy Marauders, and right in the back, Durkit Squigs, just waiting to see if the Dwarfs tried any sneaky shenanigans with Rangers and Miners and getting in the back line. For the rest of the force, we do have a Giant Ritual Hag leading the charge, and this is the classic competitive play. You bring a Night Goblin Shaman with Vindictive Glare, and a Giant Ritual Hag with Spirit Leech, and you simply shoot artillery pieces, key characters, and all that good stuff. We have some Night Goblins who are currently hidden, and in the main battle line, it's going to be a mixture of basic Goblins and Black Orcs. Black Orcs are those mighty axes, should be able to cleave the armour of the Dwarves rather effectively. We have a couple of units of Orc Arrowboys, pretty good at dealing with Slayers, and 2 Goblin Rock Lobbers, and the army is going to be led by a Night Goblin Warboss. Something you don't get to see terribly often. I thought it was Skarsnik, but no, it is this mad-capped genius riding the Angry Squig to battle, coming in with Fermented Fungi, the boss's loons, and the Tormentor Sword. A pretty cool toolkit, and a really underrated character who I think can do a ton of damage. We just don't get to see them terribly often, simply due to how powerful characters like Grom and so forth are at the moment. Goblobber does take a Spirit Leech to the face, but is going to get underway now, firing in. And the Goblobber pretty much single-handedly will most likely be able to beat back both Goblin Rock Lobbers. Looks like the Thunderers have opened up fire now on the Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers, driving them wide as they shoot a few useless missiles into the miners. But with 80 armor and a pretty cheap unit, that's not going to be getting in them too much value. One of the Goblin Rock Lobbers is almost all line already after one barrage. Of course, that -16 leadership really going to start to pay dividends up against the lowly, cheap Greenskin forces. And rather wisely here, Void is actually going to take his artillery crew off the artillery pieces so they don't get damaged. And yeah, he may run away, but he can certainly come back and fight another day. Giant Ritual Hag is going to continuously overcast their spells, so it doesn't have to get too close and get the pressure of the Thunderers to get these Spirit Leeches off, but at the same time it has regen, so it doesn't really matter if it overcasts, it'll be able to get those HP points back. Nice little surround has come on by the Greenskin forces, looking for a complete surround on the Dawi folk. Good buffering though. We have the Longbeards ready on either flank to try and push away the enemy, and these guys are shielded thick, 100 armor. They do not care if Skirmish Cav shoot them at all. Night Goblin Warboss getting a little over-eager here, so he's coming in to do the Loons maneuver, I think. He pops a Tormentor Sword down with on the Thunderers, and then comes in with his Loons. Not the best cast, but 2 of the Loons certainly reckon those Thunderers, getting some lovely value there. That is a really naughty combination there of the Tormentor Sword to pin the enemy in place, but was it worth it? He got half health down on this unit of Thunderers, but for his own kind of troubles, down nearly a third health here, which is a little bit rough on the lad. Another Spirit Leech does go down on the Goblobber, getting it down to 1 lowly artillery piece. And the Dwarfs are going to have to start coming out of their shell and pushing momentarily, because otherwise they will lose this long-range skirmish battle. In the back lines, we can see both the Goblin Rock Lobbers currently are shut off and have been driven away by the Gob Lobber, but they can pop back on and entice the Dwarfs in further. Looks like the Thunderers, though, have done some pretty decent damage now to Night Goblin Warboss, down to 2.5k health. General Trohag has also taken some damage, but that regen starting to kick in. A little bit of mismicro here by Grombrindle. Thunderers have pushed themselves forward with that attack order. They clearly weren't in guard mode. That's going to allow the Goblin Wolf Riders to start swarming over here with the Orc Arrow Boys and Night Goblins. Luckily, Grombrindle seems to have noticed this, and he's trying to fall back towards the miners with blasting charges. And this actually could become a bit of a gift rather than a curse. But no, it looks like those Night Goblins aren't going to pursue, because if they did move in there and jump on the Thunderers, these miners would obliterate them with those blasting charges. So it looks like Grombrindle managed to fix this situation. Thunderers taking basically no damage there. More Thunderers are starting to rain shots into the Orc Arrow Boys, as well as the Night Goblin Warboss. More Night Goblins. Looks like these guys are the 8-peak loons who start floating around this flank, looking once more to get some of those fanatics down the line, or maybe even jump on top of the Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes, which would be a pretty good shout. But currently they are fleeing from those blasting charges. A few do get absolutely Kobe'd, and no damage is taken. Unfortunately, those poor little dwarfs couldn't quite get into range there. Likewise, the Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes struggling to connect with the Night Goblin Warboss, but every shot that does hit is putting in some pretty solid damage. Thunderers are going down. They don't have much health, but still 40 out of the 60 models. It's allowing them to dish out the damage on the Orc Arrow Boys rather successfully, and now the Dwarfs are pushing on all fronts, it would seem. The throng has been mustered, and these guys are pushing. Forest Goblin Spider Riders starting to float into the back lines. Maybe they can hop on top of Iron Drakes, but the reason I like Iron Drakes so much is that 125 armor means even if you shoot them like this, you're just going to be doing 0 damage to them. They really do not care for light arms fire coming at them. A combination of miners and thunderers are pushing their giant Rebel Hag wide, and you can see now that the Greenskin force is also getting a little bit split up, and this is something you would assume the Greenskins want, but with the lack of punch on a lot of their skirmishers here. Oh, this is a really nice catch though. The Dragonback Slayers chased after the Night Goblins. Oh, this is really bad for the Dwarves, because now all of these skirmish cav can fire in, although blasting charges may be able to support them, and it looks like Void knows this, deciding to fall back with those Night Goblins. And now we're going to see the Forest Goblin Spider Riders hop on top of those miners, and all these guys have been caught by the Tormentor Sword, and once again the loons wreaking havoc down the line of the Dragonbacks as fire is rained down upon them. Likewise, Night Goblins down to a third health just from some of those miners with blasting charges, doing some good damage. And it looks like over here we do have Durkit Squigs have managed to find a home, hopping on top of those Thunderers, but Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons are going to counter-charge. Axes held high, and they'll do a decent job up against the Squigs in sustained combat. But it looks like those Thunderers are pretty much done for. One thing really going in Grombrindle's favour, however, is that so much of the Greenskin force is dotted all over the place and being kept at bay by the Dwarf Warriors, that now his kind of gun line is really in retreat. All Carrot Boys are running for their lives. Both the Goblin Rock Lobbers are about to be put out of their misery as Ungrim Iron Fist leads a charge of miners, although that is a lot of Black Orcs back here to attempt to deal with. Likewise, Dwarf Warriors going up against Goblins, not going to be quite so bad. On the far side, Thunderers are in retreat currently from the Giant Roach Hag. Blasting charges absolutely annihilating the Night Goblins. Welcome to the lands of the Dwarfs. And these Night Goblins, even with the Wild Pop, just getting obliterated pretty much. I mean, they've got 61 models still, but they're all going to be on very little health. Giant Roach Hag is taking huge punishing shots now from the Thunderers. The push on this flank by the Dwarfs seems to be going rather successfully. And in the main battle line, Goblin Rock Lobbers being shut down, and even the Black Orcs starting to struggle due to the amount of blasting charges coming in. And the Mighty Warrior, of course, is Ungrim Iron Fist, cleaving Orcs with every deadly swing, shoving them back down the hill into the dirt where they belong. Ungrim being an absolute champ of the Dawi people, it would seem. Over in the far side here is an absolute flustercluck of a battle. If you take a little look at the minimap here, you can see the micro of both these players is being stretched to its max as another unit of Thunderers gets shut down by the real good skirmish play here of Void. Morgub's Main Team Rollers continuing to rain in fire. Warriors Dragonfire Pass looking quite healthy. Likewise are these Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes. Dwarf Warriors of Great Weapons trying to apply pressure to Durkit Squigs. And it looks like the Warriors Dragonfire Pass going to be able to intercept them and help out the Iron Drakes, who are desperately trying to finish off this Night Goblin Warboss, who's getting danger low at this point. 1,500 health means he's very squishy, and every time a shot does connect, it's going to be doing pretty nasty damage, but he's been duped left and right rather effectively so far by the Greenskins. Wolf Riders are starting to run a little bit danger low on ammunition. It's kind of a situation of, do we shoot the Iron Drakes, the Slayers, the Longbeards? So many juicy targets. On the far right side, though, that Dawi push is continuing to go rather strong. Longbeards chasing down Orc Araboys, just stopping them from firing for the most part, and Ekron Miners have now been able to stabilise and surround the Night Goblin Shaman. These guys even have some blasting charges left on them, and some of these poor goblins being chased right into the corner of the map. Likewise, the Goblin Rocklobber trying to retreat, but being a little unsuccessful. Blackhawks have been dealt with here by Ungrim, who's up to 10 kills with the support of the Miners of blasting charges. And this is a really good play with these Miners. Just chase off the Blackhawks. Don't want them anywhere on the field coming back, because there's still 32 of them, and that's a lot of damage output. One of the Goblin Rocklobbers is back online, but the Miners can intercept if so needed. Goblin Wolf Riders up to only 8 kills, currently focusing down Miners at the moment, which isn't their best target. Seems like a lot of them trying to shoot the Iron Drakes, which I think is maybe the right call here. Again, you're not going to do much damage, but there's very few models in units, so maybe every dwarf you can kill would be worth it, rather than firing into Longbeards who are heavily shielded as well. The Iron Drakes continue their hunt for the Night Goblin Warboss. He's just having absolutely none of it, bouncing around, constantly on the move. Really well played so far by both of these players. We do have 2 Dragonback Slayers coming into the fray once more. Morgos Meiji Mora is pretty much out of ammunition. Likewise, this Wolf Rider Archer unit it has completely used up, although some poor Slayers, I think. Actually, it looks like some Warriors did bite the bullet and die for good. Bit of a pump in those dwarvish legs from these Longbeards who are working out their cardio, trying to chase these Orc Araboys all around the battlefield. And the Giant Ritual Hag is now starting to get a little bit closer to her healing cap. And the Night Goblin Shaman is going to be retreating once more. Balance power dead even. These Blackhawks getting chased off the fields, really good news for the Miners. Now Ungrim can come back into the main fight, but the Blackhawks who rallied first are butchering these poor Miners who have now been sandwiched between the pokey sticks of those sneaky Gobbos and the mighty axes of the Blackhawks with a war popped. The power of the war surging through their veins. The Miners, look at their health, it's just getting eviscerated in a matter of seconds. Over in the main clump of fighting, Longbeards have rallied themselves to the Warriors' Dragonfire Pass in a desperate attempt to save the Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes, and the Goblins are getting danger low on their leadership. A lot of them are shaken, although the Night Goblin Warboss is going to charge in one more time, and I wonder how many casts he has of his cheeky little loons. It looks like, oh, he only had 2 and he's already used them up. So he's just hopping in here instead to pop that Tormentor Sword, lower their stats, and allow those Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers to fire a little bit or more effectively up against those stationary targets. This unit has been chased off the battlefield by the Wolf Rider Archers, which is good, diligent play coming in by the Greenskins. Miners are once again free to come help support Ungrim up against the Blackhawks, and that sneaky little Goblin Rocklobber crew might be able to get back online, although the Miners of blasting charges are starting to float over to this side of the battle, maybe to help deal with these Blackhawks and then possibly disengage and try to beat back the Goblin Rocklobber crew. Thunderers are eventually going to finish off this Night Goblin Shaman, I think. His morale is getting danger low here, down to just 1,000 health as well. Oh, he's just about stabilising. Ekron Miners and Dwarf Warriors in hot pursuit, but they need to drag themselves here right back to the centre of the battlefield as these Iron Drakes finally get finished off. You can see how disgustingly tanky and hard to bring down they have been so far. But, alas, every good dwarf must come to an end, and these lads are no exception to that rule. More Iron Drakes are being shut down, but it is allowing the Longbeards and Warriors Dragonfire Pass to engage with a lot of these skirmishes, which normally they wouldn't be able to do, and they're doing some pretty solid damage throughout. Night Goblin Warboss comes in and he has some really cool attack animations as he bounds around his mighty squig, ripping and tearing his way through the enemy armour, as a fermented fungi does go down on the Dragonfire Pass, lowering that melee defense and rampaging, and now the Giant Ritual Hag has made the long march all the way over to the other edge of the battlefield. A lot of these troops have been bouncing around, and they've all gone on mighty pilgrimages of war and carnage. Blackhawks do flee right now before the might of the Miners, which is relatively hilarious, but Ungrim Iron Fist is here as well, so it makes the fleeing a little bit make more sense, because Blackhawks should be able to chew through a lot of these troops. There is this unit of 58 Thunderers still online, which could be pretty key and pivotal in finishing off a lot of the Greenskin troops, because yes, the Dwarfs have been dragged all around the battlefield, and they finally lost this little push on this flank, but the Greenskins aren't looking too healthy either. We have some Orc Araboys who have eventually been caught by the Longbeards. That long pursuit finally starting to pay some dividends to them, but the Longbeards have actually given up as soon as they catch them, like, you know what, you guys aren't worth it, we're actually going to fall back and try to bring ourselves back into the fold, because this pesky little Night Goblin Warboss is going to be able to float over there, Tormentor Sword these guys down, and allow the Orc Arab boys once again to start pouring in that long-range firepower. So I think the Dwarfs consolidating their forces at the moment would be a pretty sound strategy. Unfortunately, the War's Dragonfire Pass have been, it was mainly due to the nerf, but I still feel like they've broken a few oaths here by retreating before a few lowly goblins and running for their lives. The battle's having a bit of a lull now. We've had that big initial skirmish phase, and then the Dwarfs just pounced back with a vengeance, beating back the Greenskins on all flanks, and now they're starting to drag themselves back together into a moving iron fist to try and deal with the rest of the Greenskin forces, which I like quite a bit because the majority of the ammunition is done now for the Greenskins. You can form a small army and just march upon the Arab boys, or march upon the Goblin Rocklobber, who is actually, once again, trying to make his way back home, but Ekron miners are going to be in a bit of a hot pursuit here. Longbeards have stood and fought and held in their ground relatively well here against the Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers, Giant Ritual Hag as well as the Night Goblin Warboss, so they are getting shot in the rear. Not going to be doing wonders to their leadership, but Longbeards are pretty old in the tooth and long in the beard. They certainly know how to stand their ground and fight up against horrific creatures. A lovely little Miver does go down to slow them down, should allow the Night Goblin Warboss to escape relatively unscathed there. Ungrim still continues to chase these cowardly Black Orcs who are refusing to face the wrath of such a mighty character. And Spirit Leech goes down the Longbeards, which is an interesting choice. I'd like to see the Spirit Leech, I think, personally, go down on Ungrim or the Thunderers and try to whittle those guys down, but I understand as well having this isolated unit that you really want to crump as quickly as possible. Morgulus Magi Marauders as well as the Night Goblin Warboss are going to start moving back in this direction in an attempt to protect the Goblin Rocklobber crew and finish off the Ekron miners for good, which is certainly a good play by the Greenskins, realising their win condition could be involving getting that Rocklobber back online to help finish off some more of the healthy units of Dwarfs, particularly these Thunderers and Longbeards, who have been a big pain in the butt for the Greenskins at the moment. Longbeards managed to drive back the Giant Ritual Hag, who is at her healing cap now, and as if nothing happened, continue their pursuit once more on the Orc Arab boys, who will flee. Come on, little Longbeard, you can reach it. You can do it, buddy. No, attack, swing your axe. It looks like the Orc Arab boys may just about get caught here, but a Spirit Leech goes down on the Longbeards, and the Giant Ritual Hag once again shall be coming for a rear attack, trying to break these guys off the battlefield. It might be worth the Orc Arab boys standing and fighting briefly to allow her to get that charge in. We do see a Miver go down on Ungrim, and he's been running from that corner of the map all the way to this one. Dwarfs are dangerous over short distances, but that's a pretty hefty run, and the Black Orcs, it seems, will be able to escape here, and the battle's been going 15 minutes, which is pretty crazy for a Total Warhammer game, but particularly a competitive one, and both these guys have been attacking all the while. There was a pretty decent skirmish phase, and then it's just been an absolute grind fest so far. Golden Rocklobber crew, once again, is going to continue running, but I understand disengaging these miners and continuing the pursuit by Grombrindle, because it's a necessity to keep those guys offline, and he is slowly wasting the ammunition on the Greenskin forces and doing damage here and there, and I think the longer the battle goes on, probably the bit better for the Dwarfs, actually, though the magic could play pretty big impact as well. As the Giant Ritual Hag once again that comes in, swinging her big old meat sack around and her skulls, and the Longbeards will turn to engage this. I believe they do have a small bonus versus large, maybe. Maybe I'm just making that up and I'm completely wrong. Let's see. Oh, I think I'm completely wrong. Okay, well, the Longbeards, they're still pretty tanky, so they're going to be able to do that at least. Another Spirit Leech does go down on them. And it seems like the Orc Arab boys did win the race, but have they won the war? Because these Longbeards seem certain to break right about now, and there are Black Orcs here to support as well, which is pretty scary stuff, though Ungrim continues his never-ending march for vengeance. Thunderers and Dwarf Warriors are starting to slowly come over here as well to help support these miners in hunting down the Goblin Rocklobber. And if these Thunderers can get one or two good volleys into the Night Goblin Warboss, he may be finished for good. The Morgulus Magi Marauders almost accidentally committed to a charge there. Great micro by both players. Grumble just testing Void there, just popping out saying, oh, I'm going to attack you quickly. And it looks like that almost broke the Magi Marauders as well, so nearly a slip up for the Greenskins, but good micro kept them alive. We have one lone Iron Drake, Trollhammer Torpedo. Oh my god, this guy must have so much vengeance pumping through his veins to stay in this fight. 10 HP! And he has 15 leadership. He's got more leadership than hit points. What a beautiful little Iron Drake as he is starting to move forward. That little goblin might run over and finish him off though, which would be a pretty tragic end to his tail, as the Giant Rubber Shell Hag does eventually break off these long bids, but my god has it taken some time. The Iron Drakes continue to fire in, the little goblin screaming and waving his little axe around. Come back here with his little stabber. Come on Iron Drake, get one last volley off. Nope, instead he's going to get clobbered. Although he does swing back and he actually manages to hold the line a little while, which is pretty impressive by a 10 HP Iron Drake, taking quite a few blows here from the Night Goblin Shaman, but down he goes. Rest in peace, you beautiful soul. The little goblin jumped in celebration, which is pretty hilarious. So it is looking like one of those classic games where maybe the dwarfs will get kited to death, but I don't know, there's still a decent amount left on the battlefield, and the Goblin Rock Lobber crew is very slowly actually getting caught here, which is kind of interesting. 20 speed here versus the 28 speed of the miners. I wonder why their speed's so low. Maybe it's just because they're very tired. And these guys are exhausted though, who knows? But the miners are eventually going to catch these goblins, and I think that long pursuit has certainly been worth it there for the Dwarf forces. He needed to get that unit offline. Monster Blast and Charge is going to continue to push here and trying their best to hunt down the Orc Arab boys. If they get a couple of those Blast Charges off, it would be pretty nice. Goblins are, though, charging these guys from behind as well, so it's just a never-ending kind of treadmill of charging. Technically, this game could go on forever like this, which is pretty hilarious stuff, but I promise you it does have a end point at some point. Blast Charges, couple get thrown, actually make pretty solid contact with the Orc Arab boys, and that may slow the unit down a little bit, so Ungrim could continue his hot pursuit. And I understand as well, Grombrita wanting to charge down the Orc Arab boys, so those guys can't come back, but he's going to switch the miners of Blast and Charges onto the Goblins, who immediately start to spread out their formation, so he baits the Blast and Charges, but the Dwarfs don't bite, continue their pursuit once more. Both these guys had really regimented discipline so far. A very good game. And the Goblins back up to speed a little bit, once again trying to outrun the miners, and eventually going to get caught, but it doesn't mean they're not going to make it as difficult as possible. Those pesky longbeards have come back to the fray once more. Miners going to be starting to push over. And it looks like the Greenskins are slowly getting trapped into this corner. You can see Dwarf 4 is actually fanning out a little bit, trying to cut off the escape route of the Greenskin troops here. Miners Blast Charges once again threatening the Goblins before moving back to continue their charge. Longbeards are going to be engaging the Goblins. Nope, it looks like they're actually going to be shattered there by the mere presence of the mighty Gobbos themselves. And we're going to do a little bit of fast forwarding, because as you can see, it is basically the Greenskins just kiting and the Dwarfs just pursuing at the moment. But we'll continue going until we get some glorious action. It looks like those Orc Arab boys are going to continue to pursue. Thunderers do counter-shoot though, forcing off yet more of the Greenskin skirmish. And now the Thunderers are engaging with the Orc Arab boys, which is very good news for the Dwarfs. These guys will be able to trade rather effectively here, and it will take away some of the last damage output, from range at least, that the Orcs do indeed possess, which would be really nice. Ungrim is holding fast. It seems like some missiles are coming after him and those miners, but the Thunderers now focus throwing down those Black Orcs, doing some good armor-piercing shots into them, whittling down their health, because this unit of Black Orcs is probably the most problematic unit left on the board for the Dwarfs here. They don't really have too much to do with them apart from the Thunderers. And over in the distance, that Goblin Rock Recruit has still somehow survived for so long, juking back and forth. Miners eventually managing to catch them here, getting a few of those Goblins in those with their pickaxes. And I think the Goblin Rock Lobber crew will probably shatter rather soon, or at least break. But they're kind of engaging and disengaging, and that's allowing them to retreat more and more. Thunderers continue to pour fire onto the Goblin Warboss, who's down to just 870 health. And finally, we get the engagement we all wished for. Mitre Blast and Charge do some okay damage for Black Orcs, not really what they're designed for, but again, damage is damage at the end of the day. Ungrim and his loyal Dwarf Warrior homies are going to be used to block up the Goblins and try to free up the Thunderers so they can shoot once more. And Ungrim goes after the Night Goblin Warboss, get back here! But he is hit by a Tormentor Sword, which is really well placed. These Mitre Blast and Charges are going to get annihilated now by the Black Orcs. And yeah, poor little miners. Oh, you see so many Dwarfs getting decapitated and shoved to the ground, but in fairness to them, they're holding the line a relatively long time. Thunderers get hit by a fermented fungi, so do rampage into combat. But this is going to buy time for Ungrim to get over here and do some pretty decent damage. Giant Ritual Hag not standing around to see how that battle fares. Though the Night Goblin Warboss is going to rotate away from Ungrim and then back into the fight and fury. And every time Ungrim comes over, I'm sure he's going to be trying to retreat. But his big axe, he needs to get swinging on that Giant Ritual Hag. She has 1,700 health, right down to 1,300 with one swing. Damn, Ungrim really does hit pretty hard. More miners coming back to the front. A lot of the Goblin forces are starting to break and rout, but likewise so are the miners. Dwarf Warrior is not really going to be able to do too much up against the Black Orcs. Be nice to see Ungrim support them, but he is busy at the moment protecting that Thunderer unit. In the distance, Goblin Rottleber crew has been all the way down this battle and then all the way back up, but they are wavering. I think once they break fully once, it is certainly going to be game over for them. Thunderers managed to get one or two cheeky shots off onto Night Goblin Warboss, which is actually going to be really punishing to him for every shot he takes, as he's going to be pretty low morale-wise right now. Giant Ritual Hag is fleeing before the might of Ungrim. He's only got 21 kills on him, but he's certainly travelled very far. Only 600 damage value as well. Night Goblin Warboss actually engages in combat because the Thunderers have been so pesky at long range. He didn't really have a choice, and now he is retreating. The Thunderers could probably finish him off here because no longer can the Greenskin play a juke. This is completely out of his control. The Night Goblin Warboss will just beeline it to a exit point, down to 127 health, but I think out of range now of the Thunderers, who may not be able to finish him off for good. And there is still 49 Black Orcs here. You can see we're into the 24th minute, which you can tell this means this was a tournament game, because these guys were playing in a custom lobby. A quick battle would have resulted in a draw right about now. This has been a hectic one all round. Orc Attaboys do engage the Thunderers in combat, but not before they get off a beautiful volley. Finally, the Greenskin leadership dodging micro slips up, and the Giant Ritual Hag actually breaks and runs for her life, but she should be able to come back here. The Night Goblin Warboss minus 21 leadership, I'm not so certain he will, and the distance those miners of blasting charges did eventually kill the Rock crew. In the main fight, though, it looks like a lot of the Dwarfs are starting to abandon Ungrim and his great plans of oath and blood and vengeance, because the Thunderers are getting chased down. Ungrim's trying to catch up to bully the Orc Attaboys, and it seems like the Thunderers are going to turn, stand, and engage to try to allow Ungrim to catch, but the Thunderers, they try to form a shield wall, have no idea what they're doing, and get slaughtered pretty much. And the Orc Attaboys, if you want to use it in combat mode just to chase these guys off the field, then you surround Ungrim with the Black Orcs. Even the Night Goblin Shaman could come in here and maybe do a little bit of poke and damage. Giant Ritual Hag, one leadership should be able to rally and come back. Any Spirit Leeches now would be pretty massive onto Ungrim, or Vindictive Glares could be really nice. Miners, once again, they've run it all the way around the map, but they must charge one more time back into the main fray. And it seems like Night Goblin Warboss minus 15. Will he be able to come back? I think it's very unlikely. Come on, little boy, rally! Rally for the war! Nope, he is going to bound out. And with that, the bounce power pushes a little bit further into the Dwarves' favour, going into their favour for the first time in the game, I believe. Ungrim Iron Fist is doing a solid work. Black Orcs had 204 kills, my god. Putting in some serious work by them, but Ungrim, 2,100 HP, is still a meaty boy. Now, he probably can't kill all the Black Orcs, but can he break them? The Night Goblin Shaman's just vibing nearby, trying to give a little bit of an encouragement aura. As you can see here, he does give that little leadership boon. Plus, he's popping the Wand of Jet. Maybe he has a Vindictive Glare in the back burners. Ungrim's going to be disengaging and allowing the miners to come in and attack to try and help her team up here. In the distance, poor Thunderers are being beat back by the Orc Attaboys, but they're teetering on the edge with 4 leadership. If these guys break and the Thunderers come back, that'd be some pretty hilarious stuff. Giant Ritual Hag has eventually been shattered, though. There's 9 Dwarf Warriors, but realistically, they're not going to be able to get back to the main fight in time to affect anything. And it is going to come down to 57 miners and Ungrim versus a Night Goblin Shaman and 41 Black Orcs. It looks like Ungrim does turn to engage, which is a really clever idea because now the miners will get the charge and the Black Orcs won't. Of course, their charge bonus isn't great, a 12 in fact, but stopping the Black Orcs charge is quite nice there. Miners are trying their best. Ungrim only has 1,400 health, but now that he's saturated in with his own troops, he should be able to do some pretty decent damage without taking too much back in return. Killing 2 Orcs there with 1 blow. And oh my god, he's doing some serious work now. He has his business face on. Night Goblin Shaman, you can see that the Greenskin player's done this multiple times. He'll move him around the main fight and then attack the unit from the rear, stopping the character from chasing him down. It looks like the miners may just about be spent, but their sacrifice was not in vain. It certainly had Ungrim to get the better of this engagement. Balance power is once again almost dead even, maybe slightly favoured in the Greenskin way, as Ungrim is pretty much the last dwarf standing with anything left. Nope, we have miners running, these guys are running. Orc Arrowboys can come back into the main conflict. The Black Orcs trying to hold the line. 244 kills is absolutely insane, but Ungrim is a different beast. He doesn't care how many you've killed, you still gotta kill me. And he's taking a lot of shots from all angles, but likewise, every time he hits, heads do roll. His axe is very bloodied right about now, but not having the best of days himself either, with the amount of blood that has been spilt off his own king. Looks like the miners have managed to return to the fight. They're going to be very low morale-wise. I'd maybe even disengage the Black Orcs just to finish them off before they get the charge in. But there's only 16 Black Orcs, so they don't want to take any more losses from Ungrim, who's down to just 560 HP. Balance of Power is getting danger close to army losses for the Dwarfs, but they won't really affect them, because, if this unit miners breaks, then all they have left is unbreakable troops. Black Orcs are wavering at the moment, and in fact broken by the charge of the miners. What heroic miners! And they are now engaging with this Night Goblin Shaman, who's in a pretty sticky situation. Only 640 HP, and now the hunt is on, Gimli style, hunting down the Uruk-hai. We will fast forward, as it's been a rather long cast and stream so far, and yeah, he's simply going to be chasing them all across the battlefield, while those Orc Arrowboys do indeed catch up. Looks like the little Night Goblin Shaman has managed to rally. Balance power is still in the Greenskin favour. Now, if they have a Vindictive Glare, just a lone Vindictive Glare to pop into Ungrim, who only has 354 health, the Greenskins can certainly win this. Get a Vindictive Glare in, kill Ungrim, that'll really lower the morale of the miners, and then charge in the Orc Arrowboys and you'll probably be fine. But the Black Orcs are now gone. That pushes the balance power all the way back into the middle, and the Dwarfs are going to start pushing into those Orc Arrowboys. It looks like another Wand of Jet has gone down, trying to get that Vindictive Glare up and running, but is it going to be enough? Orc Arrowboys have to engage in combat, that is the attacking rule, so he can't, continue to kite and then pray that the Night Goblin gets more and more magic. It looks like the miners have been dealt with here by the combined charge of the Orc Arrowboys, who are relatively solid in combat. And Ungrim, down to just 300 health, catches the Night Goblin Shaman, picks him up by his scruff, and dumpsters him. And with that, the Orc Arrowboys retreat, the Goblin retreats, and Ungrim, with a mere couple of hundred health, seals a victory for the Dwarfs. You can't get much more of a close game than that. I am knackered from Carlton that one. That was an insanely close game. Beautiful micro to both Void and Grombrindle. You can certainly see why these guys won some of the recent King of the Hills and tournaments. Beautiful baiting by both players. Void really does have top micro skill when it comes to using those characters to dodge enemy kind of firepower, bait units out and all that good stuff. But Grombrindle, as a dwarf player, knows all the tricks in the book. He's had to deal with Chariot Lords, people trying to kite him, all this kind of crazy stuff before, and he handled it really well. An interesting approach as well, not moving as one force, but splitting into three powerful kind of combined unit contingents, I suppose I should say. I don't know if that's the correct wording, but he had a little crew on the left-hand flank with Slayers, Thunderers, Trollhammers, and Warriors, and likewise leading the line, he had some Thunderers, Ungrim, and Miners, and on that right-hand side, allowed him to apply pressure all across the map to the Greenskins without giving away too much in return. Although it looked like Void had managed to scrap himself into a pretty dominant position, Ungrim isn't the type of lad to take a loss sitting down, so he got up off his ground, picked up his axe, got out there, and got a solid victory. We will go through the damage dealt and damage value of all the units in just a second, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. Feel free to comment down below what was your favourite moment of the battle, who was your MVP, what factions would you like me to show a little bit more of on the channel that you think don't get enough love, and any kind of ideas, streams, and all that good stuff. There are links as well in the description to my Patreon where you can support the channel. I greatly appreciate all you guys. It is I need to get a list of all my patrons and actually kind of like read your guys' names or put them up on the screen at the end, because yeah, it's really heavily appreciated. There's also links to a Nexus account down there, which I may not have for too long because someone else actually reached out for a partnership and I don't think I can have both, but at the moment, if you do want to buy games, you can do it via Nexus. There's also a link to my Discord down below where you can submit replays, chat with a load of cool people like Grombrindle and Void, for example, see a load of pictures of ducks and all that good stuff. Yeah, 89 kills for Ungrim, 1,200 damage value, not too shabby work whatsoever. Miners of Blast charges are pretty cheap, so some of them not paying for themselves, others doing really well. 774 damage value, for example, is very powerful. Dwarf Warriors across the board fared relatively poorly. Economized did a good job though of getting 776 damage value. Longbeards, not too shabby, 700 damage value here, only 300 on the other unit haver, and it looks like for the most part all the infantry of the Dwarfs really struggled, particularly the Dragonback Slayers, with only 522 damage value. Key to units though that managed to get a lot of work done were these Thunderers, 800 damage value and 1,700, and it really became a battle of, okay, we're not going to do crazy damage stats on all our units, we're just going to grind. We're going to grind you down, and the Dwarfs, much like the Lizardmen, are very, very talented at grinding, at least for non-undead factions. The Trihammer Torpedoes fared pretty poorly, but got some pretty key damage, same with the Goblobber, trying to shut down enemy range, but eventually it was all in vain. But the battle of the Artillery may have been a loss, but the war was certainly won. Really good play by the Night Goblin War Boss. Only 858 damage value though. He's pretty squishy. I love the idea of the Tormentor Sword and the Loons. I'm assuming the Loons count towards his damage value, and I'm pretty surprised it is that low, considering how well he was used. Maybe that's why we don't get to see him terribly often, because of his lack of punch in combat. Night Goblin Shaman didn't do too much all round, to be honest. I guess just making magic for the Giant Shell Hag. He performed far better with 886 damage value. Isolating those Longbeards was really key, but likewise so with the Spirit Leeches on the Rock Lobber to get it off the field as quickly as possible. Goblins across the board fared really poorly apart from this unit. Oh my god, what were you fighting? 110 kills? 1,183 damage value? What on earth did these goblins kill? Probably the crew of the Goblobber when it pushed forward, but apart from that, it must be Thunderers. That was really beautiful work by them. The other Goblins getting 60 kills as well, not too shabby. Some of the Night Goblin Fanatics are 0 damage value, not good on work by them. 900 though on 8 Pig Loons is far better. The Black Hawks, one unit really suffered, 474 damage value. The other performed beautifully, 2,000 damage value. Orc Arrow Boys, a mixed bag, 200 on this unit, not getting terribly much at all. But the other, 1,101 with 90 kills to boot. The Kid Squigs were okay, 772 damage value, not too bad, and the Skirmish Cavalry is very cheap, so it did mainly pay for itself, but not crazy damage value, and it really did come down to the Dwarvish resilience slowly breaking down the Greenskins. And once the Greenskins lose the momentum a bit, they can really struggle. They're one of those factions which, once the battle starts turning against them, or it gets really late into the game, their morale can become a bit of a problem, which is a bit of a weakness of them we don't really ever discuss because they are so powerful at the moment. But in long drawn-out games like this, it can be pretty scary. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, peace, peace, and as always, stay awesome.